Today on the Chad Slagle Show, coaching you to and through retirement, we are going to discuss the importance of learning from your mistakes, especially when it comes to your hard-earned dollars that you spent a lifetime to create. And on our Coach's Corner today, we're going to discuss the things you cannot control that drive the stock market up and down. And on our Chalk Talk segment today, we're going to discuss the 100 age rule as well as the importance of separating your investments into 3 different buckets and how to take control of your retirement. So sit back, relax, and learn. The Chad Slagle Show starts now. I'm Chad Slagle. I believe financial planning is about educating people and empowering them to make better decisions with their hard-earned dollars. Coaching gives me satisfaction from watching a player succeed and get better. You need an experienced team around you. The best coaches have great assistant coaches. I have brought a lot of the techniques and structure I learned from playing and coaching football and apply them to the world of investing. My goal now is to coach as many individuals and families as I can on how to get successfully to and through retirement. Welcome into the Chad Slagle Show, coaching you to and through retirement. I'm the coach, Chad Slagle, along with my colleague and co-host, Mr. Chad Tobin. And today on the Clipboard segment, we're going to discuss the importance of learning from your mistakes, especially when it comes to your hard-earned dollars that you spent a lifetime to build. You know, Chad, I'm a big believer that it's not the successes that drive us, it is the failures and the mistakes that we make that help us learn, probably because they hurt a lot more. I know as a kid, I learned a lot more from a spanking than I did from a pat on the back. And hopefully a lot of you have learned from some of the mistakes that you have made when it comes to investing your hard-earned dollars. A lot of us, have gotten spanked over the past few years in our portfolios, from the 2008 market crash to this March, of course, when the market dropped over 37% in just a few days and a few weeks. But what I will tell you is a lot of our clients that came to us after 2008, we set them up with a game plan or a blueprint for retirement. So when this recent crash happened here in March of 2020, they didn't get hurt. They were proactive and prepared with that proper safe risk ratio. And that's what we're going to show you today and talk about on today's show.
Yeah, and you know, Chad, I mean, there's so many things that are out there that we can't control, whether it's raising our family, whether it's, things going on around the world, but things that we can control. And one thing that you can control as a retiree, as an investor out there, is how your money's invested and really who you decide to work with when it comes to helping you build your game plan.
At this stage of the game, Chad, with all the unknowns that are out there, you definitely want to make sure that you have that right guide leading you through these uncertain times.
Absolutely, and I think, the guide is there to kind of make sure you're in the comfortable place that's going to get you through in a comfortable time and also make you feel good in the good times ahead, hopefully.
That's right, Chad. And, the past few months, of course, as we just talked about, have been unprecedented from a global market. The pandemic, of course, sparking a historic market crash to government-mandated stay-at-home orders. No one would have envisioned a time quite like this. If you're wondering what to do, you're not alone. Trying to make sense of your financial future and planning for retirement can be a very daunting task. Things can get very tricky if you're trying to do it all alone. At the end of the show today, we will share with you some upcoming events that you can attend in your area if you are retired or plan to retire in the next 3 to 5 years. And you'll not want to miss these events. These events, of course, are designed to empower you, to help you make a better decision and to take control of your financial future. Stay tuned. We'll be right back on the Chad Slagle Show.
Are you retired or wanting to know if you can retire in the next 3 to 5 years? Are you concerned about the new Secure Act, the biggest change in the retirement system in the past 13 years? If so, then this class is designed for you. Reserve your seat now for Empower University, an educational course for pre-retirees and retirees, hosted by Chad Slagle and his team of investment advisors. Call 844-608-1872.
Welcome back to the Chad Slagle Show, coaching you to and through retirement. I'm back here with my colleague, Chad Tobin, and today on the Coach's Corner, we're going to discuss the things you cannot control that drive the stock market up and down. As all of you know, the market does 2 things. It goes up and it goes down, and unfortunately, none of us have a crystal ball, so we are never certain when the market could take a big hit or a big loss, like it did back in 2002, 2008, and earlier this year, of course, in March. So there's so many things out there that you cannot control that affect your hard-earned dollars sitting in the stock market. And today, we want to further discuss those things that you cannot control. But later on, we also want to show you how to build a game plan to be proactive not reactive, so that you have peace of mind in retirement, even when the market takes a big hit. And even though there are things out there that you cannot control today, Chad.
Yeah, and I think, that's one of the worst feelings, in my opinion, is going into a situation and really, not having a plan. And you just feel kind of out of ordinary. You don't feel prepared. And like anything in life, if you don't have a plan, you're not going to feel confident going into this. And I think this is so important now that this, what happened earlier this year, really opened a lot of people's eyes and really should show you the importance of going into retirement with a game plan.
And really, Chad, with all the tools, all the education, all the things that are out there today to help you, there's really no reason why you shouldn't be prepared, why you should not have a plan. You really have to hold yourself accountable to make a plan or make sure that you have that blueprint for retirement. So let's jump in and discuss first of all, some of the things that you cannot control that drives the stock market up and down. Of course, as we all know today, there's so many things out there that we cannot control. And one of the biggest things that we cannot control is we cannot control what happens in other countries like China, Europe, and Greece, that unfortunately, even though those countries may have bad days in their markets, and even though you may not have money invested in any of those countries, it affects your portfolio, it affects your 401k, and it causes you to lose money.
Yeah, and I mean, just an example, obviously, in Wuhan, China. This is where all the coronavirus and the pandemic began, and now it's all over the world. We're still dealing with it, and it's still affecting the markets today.
Other examples, Chad, of course, the Brexit, which is what just happened back in June of 2016 in the United Kingdom that dragged everything down. So yeah, there's a lot of things out there that you cannot control, but the international is one thing, because if you think about 20, 30 years ago, we had a national economy. However, today, we have a global economy. Another thing we want to talk about that you cannot control, which you just brought up, Chad, of course, is the pandemic. We never thought that we would be in, number one, an economic environment, but also in an environment where our kids may or may not go to school. A thing where you have to stay in your house. You can't come out. You have to have a mask on. These are just crazy times right now in our world. In March of this year, of course, the World Health Organization declared the coronavirus disease a pandemic. And of course now, because of the pandemic and all the loans out there now, the government stepped in, of course, and had $2.2 trillion in economic stimulus signed into law, of course, by President Trump. And the problem with that, Chad, that's good. We've needed that help. But eventually, somebody is going to have to pay for this down the road, and that's going to be us in the form of taxes.
Yeah, and I think, you look at the pandemic on the front end, but when you really look at the impact in the, on the economic impact, and now you mentioned taxes, at some point, that 2.2 trillion with stimulus and other funds that have really been needed to help, we got to somehow pay this back. And I think we look at tax rates. Tax rates right now, we truly feel that we're in a lower tax rate environment, and we have probably about 5 or 6 more years until these tax rates are going to come back up and be higher to try and probably help pay for some of this, but it's also already kind of baked into that. So not only the tax rates on our income, but also some of the estate tax rates that are going to be kind of going back down from current levels.
Another thing is we all know that you cannot control, of course, is the stock market. Like I mentioned earlier, none of us have a crystal ball. Since 2009, we experienced the longest bull market in history, over 10 years. Everyone forgot what it feels like to have a big hit like what happened back in 2008. But you can't afford a 30 to 40% drop in the market when you are retired and drawing income from that money. Chad, one of the biggest concerns of retirees today is they want to make sure they had that income that's going to last throughout the rest of their lives. The problem is, folks, that the majority of your money is in the stock market. You have no idea if that money is going to last. Why? Because number one, you have no idea how long you're going to live. And number two, you have no idea if the market's going to go up or if the market's going to go down.
Yeah, and I think, think about it when you're working and, you have that paycheck coming in and you're able to just continue to keep pumping money into those accounts. But once you're retired, now all of a sudden you need that nest egg to kind of live off of, or you need that nest egg to send you money back. And this is something that, just a week ago, sitting with, a friend, and, he said, Chad, this is something that if my wife didn't have a pension of $5,000-$6,000 a month coming in, I probably wasn't going to be able to retire and move away to that Florida and play golf all the time. So, the need of a consistent income for the rest of your life and your spouse's life is the most important planning part of that planning process.
And the last thing, of course, we know that's really fresh right now that we cannot control are our politicians, or other than the vote that you or I have. You know, every 4 years, of course, the presidential election can have a major impact on policy, none bigger than right now. But how do these presidential elections affect the market? There's a lot of market data going back to the 1930s that show a muted or slightly underperforming market around election time. But this does not give us the answer to what is to come in November of this year. With the pandemic, the election, who knows what could happen in the market? And the other problem, Chad, is we have no idea what to believe. Should you believe the politicians? Should you believe the media? I mean, there's so many crazy things out there right now. We have no idea what to believe. And unfortunately, that fear or that disbelief or what we do believe drives our money, drives our emotions when it comes to investing our hard-earned dollars.
Well, and I think at the end of the day, right now is a time to take action. You know, there's a lot of people, we get a lot of calls saying, hey, before this election, we want to kind of make some changes. We want to do some different things, but you have to have a plan and you need to be proactive, and now's the time to do it.
That's the key, Chad. Again, you have to hold yourself accountable and make a plan or make sure that you have that blueprint for retirement. A way to start that is to download our free white paper today about the value of an objective opinion. To get that, visit www.schlegelfinancial.com/empoweryou. Coming up on Chalk Talk, we're going to discuss the 100 age rule as well as the importance of separating your investments into 3 different buckets and how to take control of your retirement. We'll be right back. The number one concern of retirees today is outliving their hard-earned dollars. It is more important now than ever to educate and empower yourself to make better decisions with your money that it has taken you 30 to 40 years to accumulate. How do you do this? By using our Financial GPS, our guided planning system. This is a 4-step process to help get you successfully to and through retirement. The first step in this process is to create clarity. Here we will help identify your goals as well as your concerns and identify what you want to accomplish in retirement. The second step, we will analyze the risk you're taking with your current portfolio, and this step will also identify exactly what you are paying in fees. In the third step, we will evaluate and assess your current plan and help identify the gap between the missing pieces. And in the fourth and final step, this is where we will work together to implement a plan of action to accomplish your retirement goals. And this process can take place at any one of our convenient locations in Missouri, at our Creve Coeur and Sunset Hills offices, or in Illinois at our Edwardsville, Springfield, and Jacksonville locations. So call now to get set up on the right path on your journey through retirement. Welcome back into the Chad Schlegel Show, coaching you to and through retirement. So we just discussed the things you cannot control that drive the stock market up and down. Now we're going to discuss the 100 age rule as well as the importance of separating your investments into 3 different buckets and how to take control of your retirement. Like we mentioned earlier, in order to be successful in retirement, you have to be proactive, not reactive. You cannot wait for the market to drop to start reacting and making rash decisions like what happened back, Chad, in March of 2020 when everyone started to panic. Think about this. In mid-February this year, the Dow Jones Industrial Average got to almost 30,000 points, the highest level in its more than 100-year history. And then once the COVID-19 pandemic came about, the Dow lost over 37% of its value in only a few weeks' time. If you're one of those people who recently retired or plan to retire within the next few years, this probably put a big scare on your retirement plans. You cannot afford to have all or most of your money sitting in the stock market. You have to get to the point as you get closer to retirement, you have to insulate your portfolio from a downturn of the market. So now we want to show you some steps you need to take in order to get to that point.
Yeah, and I think, Chad, one of the biggest reasons, and a lot of retirees, they're getting to retirement, and they take a more risk-adverse mental state when it comes to their dollars. They look at their dollars, they're a little bit more conservative. They don't want to lose as much money, but what they failed to do is maybe make some changes of how that money is invested. So, being more risk averse is very important, but taking proactive and making some changes is what we want to talk about.
So the first step you want to take is to find the proper balance between that money that's at risk and that money that is safe, or if the market drops, you cannot lose it. And the first place to start here is what we call the 100 age rule. And I think, Chad, when it comes to financial planning and retirement planning, it doesn't have to be very difficult. You really just keep it simple. So a simple rule to use is the 100 age rule. So you take 100 minus your age. Example, if you're 60 years of age, you subtract 100 minus 60, and of course you get 40. As you see on the T chart here, 60% of that money is safe, while the other 40% is allocated at risk. Now, this is not cookie cutter, but it is a good place to start. There's other things you have to take into consideration, such as your risk tolerance, your income needs, your lifestyle goals, your family dynamics, your liabilities and your assets, and of course, part of your assets are your investments. So again, it's not cookie cutter. We're not saying just because you're 60, you automatically have 60% of your money safe and 40% of it at risk, but it is a good place to start. But there's a lot of other variables to take into consideration because we're all different. We all have different needs when it comes to retirement.
Yeah, and I think, even back then when Mr. Bogle was founding Vanguard and the Wall Street world, that de-risking idea made a lot of sense. But the difference is years ago, de-risking for safety, Wall Street's idea is going into some bonds, fixed income, some bond type funds. So we have to now start thinking out of the box in the interest rate environment we're in the volatility environment we're in. So we're not saying this 60-40, that T chart, is cookie cutter, but it's a great conversation piece to have to start to see where you're going to fall.
So once you figure out how much of your money should be allocated to safe investments versus risky investments, then you want to separate your money into 3 different buckets. The secure bucket, the growth bucket, and that dream bucket or extra bucket. And we talk about that secure bucket. This money, of course, is set aside to be safe and to provide an income stream that you cannot outlive. How long you're going to live, nobody knows. But you need to make sure it lasts as long as you do. So you want to make sure you have an income stream set up, Chad, that's going to last whether it be 75, 85, or 105 years of age. So when we talk about the secure bucket, again, you want to look at your money as a whole. You want to make sure you set enough money in that secure bucket where it's safe, where it's going to provide an income stream that you can never outlive. But also, Chad, if you need liquid money, that's where that money is going to be sitting.
Absolutely, and I think you go back to building your financial house. If you're going to build your house, you need to build it on a very solid foundation, and that's the first step that they take in building that house. No different than building your financial house. You need the first step is to build a solid foundation.
So once you have that secure bucket set up where you know that you got some safe money, you got money that you can get to, but also the money in the secure bucket is going to provide an income stream that you can never ever outlive, no matter how long you or your spouse live, then we can afford to have some money sitting in the growth bucket. The money here, of course, is for the long term. It's here to keep up the rate of inflation and the cost of living. If the market does take a hit and you lose some of this money, it is not as big a deal. Why? Because you already have that secure bucket set up. This is what we talk about being proactive, not reactive, which unfortunately, Chad, a lot of our clients after 2008, they took a big hit. But once they got their safe risk ratio set up, once they had that secure bucket and growth bucket, this 37% drop in March hurt, but not as much because they were proactive. They didn't have to react. And now, since they didn't have to touch that money, now we're back up to that 28, 29,000. They've got back a lot of those losses because they didn't have to lock in some of those gains.
Yeah, and I think 2 things. That safe risk ratio helps you eliminate a lot of emotion. So a lot of clients didn't have to take that emotional, fear and panic and want to kind of do some things, and they were able to kind of be in a comfortable situation. So that's number 1. Number 2 is now that they know they've got their secure bucket set, taking on risk, we look for low cost options when it comes to taking on risk. We look at, funds like index funds that have a lot lower cost versus maybe higher cost mutual funds. We also look at different companies that are paying consistent dividends, companies that have paid dividends that have been through good times and bad. So these are companies that when the stocks came down, we were buying more shares at a lower point. So, now all of a sudden, if we're going to take risk, let's do it in the most manageable way and smartest way.
And also, for some reason, if you did have to draw money from this growth bucket, you can take dividends out and not have to lock in losses. And the last bucket is what we call that dream bucket or that extra bucket. That you have. And this extra bucket that is set aside for emergencies or for those family vacations you might want to go on. Or maybe it's the goal that you have to have that second home in Florida or Arizona. Whatever it is, this is that extra bucket that's available for you and your beneficiaries.
Yeah, and I think, if any of you have ever inherited any money from a family member, a loved one, it's always better to kind of grab that tax-free probate-free cash out there as opposed to having Uncle Sam and states and nursing homes take a lot of that out. So that's number 1 is legacy planning when we come to this dream bucket, but also number two is adding some long-term care and protecting your health and your assets with this dream bucket as well.
Again, Chad, it's by having those three buckets, it's all about having that plan and making sure those assets are set up properly. To download our free white paper today about the value of an objective opinion, visit www.schlegelfinancial.com/empoweryou. When we come back on our strategy play, we're going to discuss how to build your personalized game plan during these ever-changing economic times. We'll be right back. Let's go.
He's such an involved dad. He's always telling the kids stories. I remember when so-and-so said I couldn't do this or I didn't make this team. That's what drives him. In our family, we always tell our kids to stick up for each other, stand behind one another. He feels it's his role to provide, keep us safe, and to make sure that the kids are taken care of. A lot of Chad's clients have the same traditional values, and he bonds with them. Each family has a different set of circumstances, and each family is unique and different. The common thread between all of Chad's clients is that they want the best for their family, just as he would our own family.
Are you retired or wanting to know if you can retire in the next 3 to 5 years? Are you concerned about the new Secure Act, the biggest change in the retirement system in the past 13 years? If so, then this class is designed for you. Reserve your seat now for Empower University, an educational course for pre-retirees and retirees, hosted by Chad Schlegel and his team of investment advisors. Call 844-608-1872.
Welcome back to the Chad Schlegel Show, coaching you to and through retirement. On this week's strategy play, we're going to discuss how to build your personalized game plan during these ever-changing times.
Yeah, and Chad, when you look at things out there that are going on right now and things that we cannot control, we're calling them the unknowns. We have the current pandemic we're still right in the middle of. We have an election year coming up here in just a few months. Since the market volatility in February through March and even into April, we've seen that. And now, it's not a national economy like you talked about earlier. We're in a global economy. And so all of these things cause the confusion, cause the uncertainties, and cause us not to feel very confident moving into retirement.
Yeah, Chad, again, there's so many things out there that you cannot control. But what can you control? You can control how your money's invested, what your money's invested in, and who you work with when it comes to investing your hard-earned dollars. And we talk about working with someone. The first thing you'd have to do in building a plan is, number one, you have to clarify what you want to accomplish in retirement. And number two, you need to analyze the risk and fees you're currently paying on your accounts and evaluate your current plan and find the missing pieces or the broken parts, if you will. And once you've done that, then you can implement a plan of action to get you successfully to and through retirement.
And by going through that process and kind of having that game plan in place, now all of a sudden, that money's allocated. You have money in all of the three different buckets that we've talked about, and you feel very confident. You feel certain moving into times that are going to be uncertain and they're going to be good. So what you've done is you've really built that personalized game plan for you and your family.
You have that peace of mind, Chad, and you no longer have to sleep with one eye open worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow. To get more detailed information on these strategies and how they can work for you, call us now to schedule your 5-point inspection at 888-294-9248 or email us at info@schlegelfinancial.com. Stay with us. We'll be right back with some of the key takeaways from today. The number one concern of retirees today is outliving their hard-earned dollars. It is more important now than ever to educate and empower yourself to make better decisions with your money that it has taken you 30 to 40 years to accumulate. How do you do this? By using our financial GPS, our guided planning system. This is a 4-step process to help get you successfully to and through retirement. The first step in this process is to create clarity. Here we will help identify your goals as well as your concerns and identify what you want to accomplish in retirement. The second step, we will analyze the risk you're taking with your current portfolio, and this step will also identify exactly what you are paying in fees. In the third step, we will evaluate and assess your current plan and help identify the gap between the missing pieces. And in the fourth and final step, this is where we will work together to implement a plan of action to accomplish your retirement goals. And this process can take place at any one of our convenient locations in Missouri, at our Creve Coeur and Sunset Hills offices, or in Illinois at our Edwardsville, Springfield, and Jacksonville locations. So call now to get set up on the right path on your journey through retirement.
Are you retired or wanting to know if you can retire in the next 3 to 5 years? Are you concerned about the new Secure Act, the biggest change in the retirement system in the past 13 years? If so, then this class is designed for you. Reserve your seat now for Empower University, an educational course for pre-retirees and retirees, hosted by Chad Slagle and his team of investment advisors. Call 844-608-1872.
Welcome back to the Chad Slagle Show, coaching you to and through retirement. We've covered a lot today, so let's jump into some of the key takeaways from today. Number one, understand the things that we cannot control that affect your retirement. And of course, use the 100 age rule to help you build that proper safe risk ratio. And number three, make sure you have your investments separated into 3 different buckets. And again, folks, you have to hold yourself accountable to make a plan or make sure that you have that blueprint for retirement.
Now's the time, with the election coming up, the uncertainty with the pandemic, and everything we have going on, to be proactive. If you weren't comfortable going through February, March, and April, be proactive. Start building that game plan today.
To download our free white paper today about the value of an objective opinion, visit www.slagofinancial.com/empoweryou. As I mentioned earlier, the past few months have been unprecedented. If you're wondering what to do, you're not alone. Trying to make sense of your financial future and planning for retirement can be very daunting. Things can get very tricky if you're trying, of course, as I mentioned earlier, to do it alone. If you're retired or plan to retire in the next 3 to 5 years, you will not want to miss our upcoming events coming up in your area. They are designed to educate and empower you to take control of your financial future. To sign up for one of these events, call us now at 888-294-9248 for more information. Remember, folks, success is waking up in the morning, whoever you are, wherever you are, no matter how old or young you are, and bounding out of bed because there's something out there that you love to do, that you believe in, that you're good at, and you can hardly wait to get at it again today. At Slagle Financial, realize that this is bigger than our team. It's about educating you, the public, and our wonderful clients, and empowering you to make better decisions with your hard-earned dollars. For my colleague, Chad Tobin, this is the coach, Chad Slagle. Thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to visiting with each and every one of you next week.